Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to COASTER-net Updates. By this point, I'm sure you've already seen it. I know this is not breaking news, but we decided to discuss the
But is it news? Is
it news?
The question. It's breaking. It's not breaking anymore, and it may not be news, but here it is.
News either, because we did get a blueprint out of Kings Island for their new 2020 ride. It looks like it was shared on Reddit. And it looks like the first page of the blueprint that for all intents and purposes here, Danny, it looks like it's the lift hill. That's all we got. Now, we don't know if Kings Island is, releasing this or getting approval step by step, because we know in the past, we found the blueprints in the past, thanks to some of our buddies out there in Mason. We've gotten the blueprints in the past for things like Mystic Timbers. And we were able to break that down pretty easily before they announced the ride.
And if I do say so myself, we were pretty damn spot on.
Yeah, we were pretty good at breaking. Well, it's blueprints, Danny, and you're an engineer, so I would hope that you know how to read a blueprint.
I do too.
Makes me wonder about that college education if you can't then, So it looks like they're releasing maybe page by page so that the same thing doesn't happen. That's a little bit of a risky move, I guess, because what if you get the first half approved but not the second half?
Yeah, right. I mean,
right?
Yeah, I mean it's literally going to be Final Destination.
Yeah. So what it looks like here is it looks like a Giga coaster of some sort. That the lift hill. Now the interesting part is the lift hill is going the opposite direction, I think, than a lot of us had speculated it would go. So it's actually going out towards Banshee, and then in theory is going to make a turn back.
Well,
right?
So if you look on. So if you go to follow along with me, if you will, folks. If you go to Google Maps and you just type in Kings Island, and it'll take you there when my computer screen catches up to where my keyboard was an hour and a half ago. So when you go to Kings Island and you go to the satellite view, and you want to zoom in on that area where Flight of Fear is and where Firehawk was, and you can still see where Firehawk was as of today, May 13th. And if you look at this lift hill part of the blueprint, it seems like it's going sort of down, and because I don't know how my orientation of the screen is here that you're watching, but from my look, it's sort of going down and to the right towards the lift hill is going towards the bottom right-hand corner of the page. Right, so if you're looking at the blueprint here, I'll look at my Raven footer layout there. It's kind of going down this way in this direction, and there's an arrow that indicates that north is directly up towards the top of the page. So if you look up north here on Kings Island, that would indicate that the lift hill would be going towards the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, which is almost directly away from the Flight of Fear launch tunnel, almost exactly perpendicular to that, which I would say is a good 70 degrees off. It's not alongside Racer, it's almost directly away from Racer. And the station would be, I'm assuming, somewhere in that Firehawk area, and it would go back into the woods that way, which is not really towards the Beast. It's sort of parallel with the Beast, even farther away from going towards the Beast. So it would have to be quite large to go over towards the Beast, which is what some are speculating based on where the clearing is. Unless the first drop, which we only see the footers, right? So we don't see where the track necessarily is going to go. So unless the first drop has a right-hand turn in it, which is a possibility.
Yeah. And now there are supposed layouts being leaked as well. I don't buy into those. I think there's, the problem we're experiencing here with Kings Island is there's a whole lot of misinformation going on out there. There's fake websites for names. There's the blueprints now, and now we got, layouts. I think most people have come to accept that the blueprint is legit, called Project X on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the website for the Mason with the name on it, that's false. A lot of people are speculating that the layout, which is real short, is false as well, is fan made and not so much a real layout being leaked by anyone in the park.
Right.
So I think there's still a whole lot to speculate on here. But it does seem most of the experts, Dennis Spiegel was out there on the news talking about how he thinks it looks like a Giga coaster. This area is lending itself to something we may not have seen before. Maybe a Giga Twister in the style of Raging Bull, because the area that they've cleared is still not big enough, in my opinion, to put something like a Fury out there. Obviously, a Leviathan you can fit out there, but I
certainly not something as spread out as Fury. I mean, Fury is very much an out and back.
Yeah. And I don't know if people would be excited by a Leviathan type ride in the year 2019.
At this point, I think if you were to just take Leviathan, forget that Leviathan exists as is, and if all we had was Fury, didn't have Leviathan, and you unveiled a layout of Leviathan after knowing what Fury was a few years ago, you would be disappointed because Leviathan is not as good as Fury.
Well, we say that all the time, that the only thing that Leviathan does better is the Leviathan Speed Hill. You put that Speed Hill on Fury and you have a near perfect roller coaster, right?
Well, yeah, and some on this show would even debate that you could put the Leviathan Speed Hill on Iron Rattler, and that would be a damn good ride.
Now, you had made an interesting point to the effect of maybe why Kings Island is getting a smaller Giga versus getting a bigger Giga, and it has to do with Kaga. So why don't you?
There we go. So some correlation may actually imply causation here. No, but and I will not take credit for this. The idea was first floated out to me by my friend Kevin, who is a Coaster Radio correspondent who lives close to Kings Island there. A lot of the rumblings going around that he had pointed out is if the California's Great America project was indeed canceled, and all indications are that it was, because we've heard nothing out of that since the first rumbling.
And supposedly they've canceled even more stuff.
Right.
Since then, the little stuff that they had planned has also been put on the kibosh.
Right. So the thought here is Kings Island working on a limited budget that was originally planned for whatever the California's Great America project would be? And if that's the case, are you going to get a discounted Giga Coaster at Kings Island? In which case, it may be closer to a Leviathan than a Fury. And I mean, the Kings Island fans are going to be upset if that's the case, because let's be honest, they're hoping for their Fury or even better, right?
Unless you change the game, and you change the game by making it a Giga Twister. Raging Bull.
But the question is, would that still be better? Because Raging Bull, by many accounts, is one of the worst B&M hypers, and a lot of that might have to do with the trims and whatnot. The layout itself, I think, is fine, but you would have to, like you said, you would have to change the game and do it a different way. And maybe you do a couple of treble clef turns, maybe you have some hang time on hammerheads, maybe you do speed hills here and there. I don't know what you do. But I think
I don't think the goal here is to be better than Fury. I think ultimately, that's the goal you want to set.
But I think that's the wrong game to go into, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's the standard. I think if you're going in trying to be better than Fury, then it's going to be really hard to do because one, we already have Fury. So you can't just recreate what Fury does.
You're fighting a losing battle from the get-go. I mean, we already talked about this with some of the RMCs. I mean, at this point, you can't try and be better than Steel Vengeance. You've just got to be different and do something different. I think the same argument applies here, is I don't think you can just straight out try to be better than Fury. I don't think it's I don't think you can really do it if you're going to
the comparison here. I think the perfect comparison here is the difference, and I know they're two different heights too, but the difference between Millennium Force and Expedition G-Force, that people say that those are two very, very different rides. Even though they look the same, even though they're the same manufacturer, I'm thinking off the top of my head here, Millennium Force has the straight down drop, Expedition G-Force has that curving drop. You put a few extra airtime hills. You maybe do the Leviathan Speed Hill a number of times on this course, something Fury doesn't have at all. And you start working like that, and you start coming up with a new conception for what this Giga coaster is going to look like. And then I think there's no reason to compete with Fury. People are then going to judge this ride and say, okay, let's judge this ride against all the other rides, versus, because if you build a straight up Giga that B&M has always done, it's going to be whatever Kings Island does versus Fury. Now we need to do whatever Kings Island does versus everything else, and really say, okay, well, this is much different than Fury. Now we're going to judge it against every roller coaster, which I think is where Kings Island might be able to win that battle then. Is it going to be better than Fury? I don't know. But you start doing stuff that Expedition G-Force does on a B&M Giga, and I'm not saying exactly, but you start thinking like, okay, Leviathan Speed Hill, let's get, some nice little turns and twists in there. Raging Bull, I've always said, is half a good ride. That there are some really great moments on that ride, but there's also some really bad moments hindered by the trims. And we know B&M has moved away from trims a lot in their recent designs, that they're not trimming stuff as much as they used to. Now, I don't know if that's a matter of, I've always said the clamshell restraints are kind of limited on what they can do. Now, Fury kind of set that apart, because Fury does a lot of overbanks and Fury does a lot of high-speed maneuvers.
Fury does a lot of intense maneuvers, and it's fine.
So maybe the clamshells are fine with all of that. They do have the seatbelts now, so I think that adds an extra layer. I know you're not a huge fan of the seatbelts, but if it gives
you know what to do with them, you don't really realize they're there.
Exactly, right?
I think this is the same discussion that we had not long ago when we talked about RMC Gwazi, and everyone talking about RMC Gwazi possibly being better than Steel Vengeance. We said from the get-go, again, RMC Gwazi should not try to just be better than Steel Vengeance. It needs to be different. It needs to be completely different, do something out of the box, do some new maneuvers, stuff that Steel Vengeance doesn't already do. Because let's face it, if you just try to be better than Steel Vengeance and you don't do it, then it's a disappointment, right? If you're different and more unique, then you start to get into the whole Iron Rattler versus Twisted Timbers versus Wicked Cyclone versus Joker. They're all different, right? And, different people like different things about each one of those. They do some of the same elements, but they do have some very different things. If you just try and build Steel Vengeance again, where's the draw on that? Give me some new maneuvers. And Gwazi may very well have some of those, whatever they decide to call it. And I think you need to talk about the same sort of thing here, where you can't just have a big drop, some overbanks, some high-speed turns, a good turnaround, then airtime hills at the end. Do something a little different.
Danny, you just described Millennium Force, too, which is the other problem in this equation, is not only do you have to be different than Fury, you also have to be different than the roller coaster 4 hours away, which is Millennium Force. And Millennium Force is kind of like a B&M type coaster with the floater airtime, with the sustained floater air, with the really overbanked turns. You have some of the speed hills at the end of it, you just described. So not only do you have to be different than Fury, you got to be different than Millennium Force too. And
that's the other challenge, right? And that's a problem that Fury did not have. Because the closest Giga up there, King's Dominion, was an Intamin and was a very different
and that one you're never going to confuse with a B&M. you're never going to confuse I-305 with a B&M ever in your life. If you do, you should leave the industry.
Well, and it's interesting because you've got to be different than Millennium Force because it's not that far away, right?
Yeah.
But you've also got to make the distinction. Let's not forget about Diamondback. I mean, we always talked about how Leviathan and Behemoth are different and Fury and Intimidator are different. But if you're going to make a potential Giga coaster at Kings Island different from Diamondback, and you're going to make it maybe more of a twister style layout, you've got to be different than Millennium Force, yes, but you've got to be very different from Diamondback still, and you've got to do a lot of different things from Diamondback. Otherwise, you're going to fall into the trap that Leviathan, Behemoth, Fury, and Intimidator do not fall into. There was
what now I'm going to throw something out there, and this I don't believe this is going to happen, Danny. So and you know something crazy's coming, right? Because when I say I don't believe this is going to happen, what if they throw inversions on this bad boy?
I don't think it has the clamshells then.
Well, it can't have the clamshells like that. Yeah, you'd have to do like a wildfire train, or you'd have to do a new vest train. And I like I said, I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't even know if I like the idea. But you throw inversions on a 300-foot roller coaster, and you've automatically set yourself apart, right?
And you know what? And again, we brought this up a couple weeks ago, but if you're going to do that, you might as well just make it a 350-foot dive coaster at that point.
Well, I tell you what, that fake layout that I've seen looks like a dive coaster to me. So all the people lining up to say that that's the layout and that's what they want, that looks like a dive coaster to me. So I don't know how else to say that, but that looks like a dive coaster layout, like if I've ever seen one in my life. So if that's what you guys want to line up behind, go right ahead. But I'm hoping for something a little bit different. And how long have I been calling for B&M to do something different, to take their pre-made conceptions and turn it on its head? And I feel like I said that before Fury, and I feel like I kind of got it. But now I feel like we're going to go to the next level, and we're going to get that even more with this Kings Island coaster, where I think they're going to blow that concept of what a Giga is up even more. And I'm kind of excited to see what they do with it. If it turns out that they're just going to put airtime hills like Diamondback has or like Fury has, then I'll be disappointed. But if they're really going to blow up the conception of what a Giga should be, and I think they have the opportunity to do that here, if they're going to blow it up, I really hope that it's something spectacular.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of opportunity, like you said. They certainly could if the land clearing doesn't get much bigger than it is right now, then maybe that's the route they go. Certainly the footers, if you look at Leviathan or Fury from Google Maps, it certainly looks like the footers are very similar to those two rides. So it very much looks like we're going that route. We know we're not going to get a hyper coaster. If they get a B&M hyper coaster, then
who cares?
What the hell's going on? Because they already have one of those.
Hershey's getting one too.
Well, yeah. So I mean, all signs. And again, we sat here and we threw out all sorts of possibilities: a flying coaster, a dive coaster, something else. We threw out all sorts of possibilities, and then at the end of all of it, we came back and said, "But B&M Giga Coaster is probably where it's going to go."
Back in August when we first learned of this rumor, we were on the Giga bandwagon first too. So, and then we said, "Well, what would make this?" And as we always do here, we say, "What would make this more unique?" Because just building new coasters doesn't excite me. People build new coasters all around the world every single year. Building something that's similar to what I've already seen doesn't excite me. Building something that is unique and exciting is what gets me to these parks and why I'm trying to go out there and find new rides. That's the exciting part of new rides. So if you're just going to do what Steel Vengeance does, I'll go to Cedar Point and ride Steel Vengeance. I don't need the poor man's Steel Vengeance. If you're going to just do what Fury does, I'll go down to Carowinds and ride Fury and maybe hop on Copperhead Strike. I don't need a poor man's Fury. If I'm going to go ride Voyage, I don't need to go ride Ravine Flyer.
And that's the one that I was going to say. It's like, you know what? I am much closer to Waldemere than I am to Holiday World. But where do I find myself the weekend after Memorial Day every year? I go to Holiday World, and I haven't been to Waldemere in a couple of years. Ravine Flyer 2 is a great ride. It's in my top 15 or so wood coasters out of, over 100. It's a great ride, excellent ride, but it's no Voyage, and not many rides are close to what Voyage can do. But the point remains the same, right?
And that's why I think I'm here talking about this, doing a new Twister style layout, because I'm hoping for something different, unique, that will set this ride apart from things we've already been on. Because if it's just going to be another ride that we've been on before, then I don't need to go out and ride it. That I'm not going to, when I'm there, I'll ride it and be happy riding it. But I'm not going to race out there, and try and go be the first one on it, because I want something unique. I want something different. And I feel that Cedar Fair kind of has been doing that. You don't see me. I haven't been to Canada's Wonderland yet, Danny. You know why? Because I don't think Yukon Striker is that far different than what we've already had with the other dive coasters, with Sheikah or Valraven. I don't think it's that different.
If Canada's Wonderland still had Dinosaurs Alive, you'd be going.
I would probably be there. You are correct. If they had Yukon Striker and Dinosaurs Alive, then I would be there to complete my collection that I missed out. I can't even get into it. It's so depressing, Danny. I can't even get into the Dinosaurs Alive.
You still have the opportunity to ride all the Windseekers.
I don't think I want to go down that road anymore. Other people have already played that game. No one else was on I've been to every Cedar Fair Dinosaurs Alive. I was the only one playing that game, and I failed at it.
Yeah, and you were even there, and you forgot that they had it.
No, I was too busy riding Behemoth all day long at Coasting for Kids.
Good ride.
Probably the correct choice, Danny, to go to Dinosaurs Alive.
Probably the correct choice as a host of a theme park and roller coaster video YouTube channel here. Probably made the correct decision on the nerd scale.
So we will keep
Raptor Universe lost out.
Yeah, Raptor Universe. That was a big loss for Raptor Universe that week.
Yeah, it was.
That could have put them on the map there too, I think.
Yeah, that would have been the tipping point right there. Canada's Wonderland, Dinosaurs Alive. Oh, boy.
Oh, man. So we will keep you updated on what's going on at Kings Island. I am sure we are going to get more rumors. And I will caution everyone right now, do not believe everything you see, because
I would even say do not believe anything you see.
Seriously, this is going to be wading through the sludge more so than any campaign we have ever seen in the past. We're not even a month into the season. We've already gotten a number of fake things, people talking about it constantly. So yes, things are out there, but I would urge everyone to verify as much as possible the authenticity of what they're actually seeing, and put it through, the old, does this make sense, theory.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to be like garbage pickers here the next couple months. You're just going to have to wade through all the garbage, and most of it is going to be exactly that. And when we think that we've come across something that's real, then maybe we'll talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm, of course, Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.